It's a very bright and sunny day today. Very bright. Okay, so I've never heard tell of this book we're starting to learn, and I got an ad for it yesterday. Oh, they hear us. They're listening. Oh, it's a little creepy. It's a little creepy that is what happened. I don't know. Hey Liz, hey Jen. Alright. It's new book day, the sun is shining, the tank is clean. The tank is clean. It's true, they're always listening. Always listening. So it's a little creepy though, you guys. It's a little creepy that is the case. Hey Anya. Hey Priscilla. The tank is clean. Oh gosh. Yeah, I'm excited too. I'm always excited about, a new good book. Should be interesting. It's always fun to switch it up every once in a while. You made me and get to read something nonfiction and different. And not that we don't love our fiction books, but it's always fun to switch it up. I like a good switch up. Morning. Did everyone sleep well? Hey Jennifer, here for new book day. How did everyone sleep? I'm obnoxious. I slept okay, like mediumly, which, par for the course these days, right? Can't really expect too much better. H2O intolerant. It's very funny. That is crazy because it never happened with any of our other books. That is weird. Hey, Amanda. Life has been me. Oh, I'm glad you're back. Well, it's a good day to be back because it's the start of a new book. It's always nice to start at the beginning of a book, right? I mean, not that we don't have the things up on YouTube, but it's like hard to jump in the middle of a conversation. It's always nice to start at the beginning. Let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. Good morning, Avery. I did not. What are the new flavors, Amanda? Tell me everything. I will get some. Are any of them ones that I might like? Or is it all seasonal? Library doesn't have this book. Oh, I got it through my library. That's so weird. I literally got this one through the library. I wonder how they decide. Almond croissant. Wait, I need that. Almond croissant is definitely up to me. Oh my gosh. Almond croissant. Oh. There's no world where I will survive without almond croissant. No, I will not. They do it by requests. Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. Let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. When you read, you begin with ABC. There are two others, but I went blank. Yeah, I would have too, Amanda. I mean, you know me. If it's croissant, I'm getting it. So, oh. I went blind after almond croissants. It's true. There's pretty much nothing I love more than a croissant. Yes. Except this coffee, which smells phenomenal. Phenomenal. Amanda, will you do me a solid and remind me when the live is over to order some? Because I have a feeling I'll forget, but I don't want to forget because I want to order it, but I don't want to forget. Daily slime check-ins, you should. It's pretty funny. Because your slime has decided it doesn't know where it wants to live. You guys, I packed so many orders yesterday. You know what, Megan? I'm hoping it will be like Monday or Tuesday. That's my goal, but I will know by the end of today for sure, and I will announce it. But I'm hoping early next week so that they can all be mailed by like Wednesday. That is my goal. The good hurts are pretty fantastic. It is true. Okay, let's get these legs up here. Let's get a sip of coffee before we start our new book. Is everyone ready to read Disney High today? Sorry for that awful slurping sound. Ew, that was weird. Why did I do that? It's because it's all foamy on the top. Thank you. I got these leggings when I went to visit a friend who works at Disney World, and she took me to like the cast member store. They were $4 at the cast member store. So, you know. Needless to say, they don't fit quite as well right now as they usually do, so I have to wear them below my belly because prego, but they used to fit really nicely before I had, you know, a protruding child. It's a huge steal. Huge. I should have bought them in every size. If I was smart, I would have bought one in every size. That's what I would have done. I didn't because I'm a dummy dumb, but I should have. All right, let's get into it. Very excited. Oh, what are you doing here, friend? What's going on? I need to go to the home page. There's our book. Okay. So, for anyone who is new here, we are starting a new book today, and the book that we are starting right now is called Disney High, and it is a nonfiction account with a lot of interviews and information about what it was like at the Disney Channel in the early 2000s, and we're all morbidly interested in this whole thing. I also personally have always had a fascination with like child stars and child actors and stuff because I have always been a huge Judy Garland fan, and I've read like a ton of Judy Garland, you know, biographies, and there's a whole lot in that world, and like the whole Judy Garland versus Shirley Temple kind of model of being a child performer, probably because I work in entertainment, you know, it's all very interesting to me, and so I think that this book is going to be super interesting. That being said, the beginning of this, it is a chart, but it's hard to read this chart on the Kindle because it's pretty small, but I'm going to read it to you anyway so we can kind of get a feel for what she's saying. It says, key 2000s Disney Channel series and their premiere dates. Hey, Becca. So you can see that it's just like, it's got at the bottom 2000 to 2012, and then it's got the lines of like, sorry, I have the hiccups as always. So you've got like Even Stevens, Lizzie McGuire, High School Musical, That's So Raven, Cheetah Girls, Camp Rock, which was huge, but not quite as huge as High School Musical, The Sweet Life on Deck, Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, Hannah Montana, just finished up the field trip, very exciting. You know, you can make the chart bigger. Oh, I don't know, let's find out. Oops, I didn't mean to do that.
like magnify it. Oh wait, that's not the magnifying glass. I'm not sure. I mean, I can read it. You guys just can't see it. It's not really that informative of a chart, if I'm being honest. It's literally just a timeline of some shows. So like, if it was more important, I'd be more concerned about it. But just so you guys know, that's what we're starting with here, is this 2000s to 2012 timeline. We've got stuff from Lizzie McGuire. Actually, she's clocking Even Stevens as the first thing on this list. And the last thing on her list is The Sweet Life on Deck at 2000. Oh, no, sorry. Wizards of Waverly Place went all the way to 2012. So, interesting, you know? And now we go to our prologue. Prologue. An inconspicuous van pulled up outside of the Vinings apartment complex in Orlando, Florida, so early that the moon still hung in the dawn sky. It idled in the parking lot, waiting for the arrival of precious cargo to transport to Disney's MGM Studios 9 miles south. Once all were present and accounted for, the vehicle continued on its journey, bouncing down the dusty, still to be paved back roads leading to the new theme park. Oh, I didn't realize that MGM was new at that time. Wait, she doesn't even say when this is. I don't know what I'm talking about. There was no time given. I just assumed it was 2000 and MGM was not new in 2000. Wake up, Sasha. The goods in question were a rabble of teenage Mouseketeers, and their final destination every Tuesday through Saturday in the early 1990s was a brightly lit soundstage housed within the 135-acre attraction. There we go. It's the early 1990s. In 1989, Disney's MGM Studios, today rebranded as Disney's Hollywood Studios. I miss the days when it was MGM. We literally used to just call it MGM when we would go. It was fun. Had been the third Disney theme park to open in Florida. It was partly modeled around the working movie studios of Los Angeles and featured movie-themed rides as well as a backstage studio tour. But in order to have an authentic backstage tour, Disney needed to give the park goers a taste of a real production. Enter a revamped Disney classic that would air on the company's fledgling cable venture, the Disney Channel. A few months before the Berlin Wall fell, the all-new Mickey Mouse Club rose. Disney's original Annette Funicello-era Mickey Mouse Club variety show ran on ABC and shot on a closed soundstage at Disney's Burbank, California studios in the 1950s. Now, this reboot would serve not only to draw in viewers to the Disney Channel, but also to entertain tourists at the Florida theme park, where the cast would delight live audiences with scripted comedy skits and musical performances of contemporary radio hits. Honestly, it's a genius concept, I have to say. There's a reason that it worked, and it's because it's good. Because variety shows work. People like them. It's just a fact. Gone were the cutesy mouse ears of yours and replaced by hip Letterman jackets bearing each Mouseketeer's name. It was a new club for a new era. Looking back, it's easy to brand the cast as a veritable who's who of Hollywood icons. Stars like the Emmy-nominated Kerry Russell and velvet-voiced boy band king J.C. Chasez joined the cast early in the new show's seventh season run. But at the time, they were just a collection of unknown preteens and teens cherry-picked from around the country, and occasionally Canada, on widespread casting calls. The show avoided casting out of New York and Los Angeles, opting instead to recruit kids from the Heartland, the South, and the non-show business towns from coast to coast in an effort to capitalize on their relatability and authenticity. Again, it's kind of a genius model. Whether you agree with everything that happened or not, the concept is good. So, you got to give whoever pitched this, I hope they got a big raise. You know. In February 1993, 1 month before my brother was born, for those who are keeping track, a sweeping search was underway to replenish the supply of younger talent for the show's 6th season. The top 23 contenders were flown to Florida to undergo multiple days of tryouts on the Star Search stage at MGM. Casting director Matt Casella, the producers, the music supervisors, and acting coach Gary Spatz were all given printouts to fill in, grading the contenders on a scale of 1 to 10 in key categories, including acting, dance, vocals, camera persona, personality, and appearance. Each performer then received an overall letter grade and commentary. Oh God, the way that I never could have survived this. I would have literally just cried myself to sleep. From Spatz' penciled-in assessment of the 7 kids who made the cut, 12-year-old Ryan Gosling, a very good kid, 12-year-old Christina Aguilera, a special, 11-year-old Marquis Lynch, I like this young man, 12-year-old Justin Timberlake, B+, raw but good, 13-year-old Nikki DeLoach, I really like this kid, 12-year-old TJ Fantini, a winner. A winner. And 11-year-old Britney Spears, B+, very good, nice girl. Jessica Simpson had also been in the mix, but she bombed her audition and received the inscrutable rating of ? by Spatz. If any of you haven't read Jessica Simpson's memoir, there's an audiobook version of it. It's a little hard to listen to because she's not a great narrator, in my opinion, despite the fact that I am a big fan and I do love her singing voice. She's not a great reader, but the book is good. So I did it anyway. Worthwhile, get it at the library or something like that, but just be prepared that it's a little difficult to listen to. Anyway, she mentions this, which is why I bring it up. Those newcomers' families were then uprooted to Central Florida, where the young performers were thrust into a well-oiled, star-making venture. The cast filled their production days with on-site acting, singing, and dance lessons between shooting. It was really like Juilliard or something, music producer Sarah Elkhart said. They brought in high-level professionals to improve the kids' abilities to be triple threats. Long before Google and Apple popularized the idea of a campus workplace, Disney made this blueprint. Cast members who were still in school did their mandatory 3 hours of schoolwork a day in the studio classroom. Yeah, I thought it was, Naisa. I thought it was good. 3 hours of schoolwork a day, and we wonder why Britney Spears' memoir turned out the way that it did. It might be because she was only doing 3 hours of schoolwork per day. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. It's just a thought, though. They ate their meals in the park's commissary, and there was a fitness room to stay active and a therapist on call to help with mental stress that might arise. They were brand new in talent that needed to be developed in the way that it set up a reminder to me of the old MGM studios. Yeah, and how strict were those hours? Spatz said, I hadn't seen anything done like that since the 1930s and 40s. Obviously, if you look at where they are now, this is a really incredible foundation, but you couldn't do that in any way, shape, or form. The laws wouldn't allow it. So I don't know if any of you are like super familiar with the old MGM like studio system from the 30s and 40s that he's talking about. If you're interested in it, I highly recommend looking it up. It's very interesting. Some of the things that they did in that original studio system were really bad. Some of it, however, I do think is good. So for example, like all of the performers were given media training, and there were rules about what they were and weren't allowed to do publicly. I actually think that that is a benefit to young performers coming up. I think that all young performers should be given media training to prevent them from getting themselves in bad situations, right? Like you need PR training, you really do. And a lot of people don't get it these days, and we see the results, and the results of that are not good. I'm not saying that you should change who you are, but being able to appropriately word what you want to say. The podcast You Must Remember talks about the studios. Really? I'll have to check that out. I think you can avoid a lot of scrutiny and a lot of kids being made fun of for saying the wrong thing if you teach them how to speak. And I think this goes for everyone, not just young performers. It's the same reason why I think speech class in school is really good. It's the exact same thing. If you're not going to be a performer, you don't need media training. It was everywhere anyway, Amanda. Sort of on topic, the 60s Supremes got PR training and etiquette training too, just like that. Exactly. So in some cases it worked really well, in some cases it didn't. Some people did rebel because they were held too tightly, and I don't think that's good. But I do think that media and etiquette training can prevent you from being picked on. I do. Like, okay, this is just a very baseline example, but did any of you see that whole kerfuffle that went down with the really popular influencers here on TikTok, Matt and Abby, who have 2 young boys, and they left them alone in a room on a cruise and then posted about it? I mean, how absolutely off your rocker do you have to be to tell millions of followers that you left your children alone in a room and went to dinner? I mean, insane. It's an insane thing to do. It's dangerous and you should never do that. And I won't even let, like, the kids that I used to nanny called me the helicopter nanny because I would like hold them as we crossed the street, even when they were like 12. But like, even if you're gonna do it, which is bad, why would you tell people? Like, are you insane? And then the way that they tried to get around it, like Amanda's saying, is they looked so sus in the aftermath. And it's like, bro, I have to tell you something. They have not had media training, right? And like, that's the core of the issue right there. So anyway, we're gonna read, but I do think that I think everyone should have media training if they're gonna be in the public eye. And if you're not, you should just take speech class. That's my personal opinion. That ample time together created plenty of opportunity for tight bonds and romance to blossom among the cast. Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera both harbored crushes on their older co-star Tony Lucca, who dated Kerry Russell. Britney wanted whatever Kerry had, Tony said. If Kerry had me, then Britney wanted me. The younger girls just idolized Kerry, imitating her mannerisms and tying their shoes into knots at the waist because that's how... Their shirts, not shoes. Tying their shoes into knots at the waist. Tying their shirts into knots at the waist because that's how Kerry wore hers. When not needed on set, resident rapscallions Ryan Gosling and Justin Timberlake would steal unattended golf carts and ride them through the theme park. On weekends, the cast would band together for supervised barbecues and beach trips, and some of the older teens would congregate for house parties where they occasionally drank, and nearly everyone loved to chastely party at the teen-friendly clubs at Disney's Pleasure Island Entertainment Quarter, now incorporated in today's much blander Disney Springs. I also went to Pleasure Island as a teen, and it was pretty fun, I have to say. Yeah, my grandmother would drop me off with Ryan and Justin and Brittany at Pleasure Island, and we would just dance, Nikki Deloche said. I mean, Brittany was 11. It was insane that we were even allowed to do this, but we did, and we were totally fine, and we were safe and responsible. And then we would make our way back to the pickup spot by 11 p.m., and we were allowed to just be kids. While the all-new Mickey Mouse Club superfans worshiped the cast, the performers' popularity was happening largely in a vacuum. At that time, the Disney Channel was an exclusively premium network for paid subscribers. I think my parents had to get the Disney Channel because their kid was on it, Mouseketeer Dee Dee Magno Hall said. There was no YouTube or social media for Disney to disseminate clips to the masses, or for its stars to use to engage with a wider audience. And when the Mouseketeers returned to their regular schools on season hiatus, their classmates could be cruel. MICKEYBITCH, a bully sang to Lindsay Alley as she walked into the cafeteria in Lakeland, Florida's middle school. The other kids erupted into laughter. I went into the bathroom and I just lost it, she said. I remember thinking, does everyone hate me? But in its seventh season, the all-new Mickey Mouse Club had gotten wildly expensive to produce. The oldest cast members' contracts were ending soon, and they'd once again need to be replaced with a fresh crop of young stars, meaning a whole new casting search. Plus, a corporate overhaul was brewing at the network. It was easiest for the Disney Channel to just pull the plug entirely when the season ended at the end of the production in 1994. It wasn't until a few years later when Britney and Christina became solo pop stars and JC and Justin found success with NSYNC, all on non-Disney record labels, that the media began to marvel at the connective thread of the superstars' early days at the Disney Channel and the show that launched them. The performers left Disney in their dust and sold platinum albums, world tour tickets, and endless merchandise. And the Disney executives began to bemoan their losses. The fact that they became stars after they left was Disney's mistake. The all-new Mickey Mouse Club showrunner Dennis Steinmetz said they should have held on to them for a while just to see what would happen. From a business perspective, Disney should have launched those promising young stars' solo careers on Disney record labels. They should have facilitated their cross-platform exposure across greater Disney Corporation numerous divisions. They should have secured spin-off series as movies, albums, concerts, radio, and promotional opportunities that transcended a cable audience and touched consumers around the world, launching the network's talent to massive fame and bringing in obscene amounts of corporate money along the way. But nobody at Disney was thinking like that. Yet. Dun dun dun. Chapter 1. Changing of the Guard. Yeah, I don't even remember when we got the Disney Channel, to be honest. To be a kid on Disney in the 90s, just be able to roam the parks whenever is like, yeah, it's interesting. Also, in general, though, like, I don't know about you all, but, like, we had a lot more freedom in the 90s. Like, it was very normal for kids of Southern California for everyone in the neighborhood to have a Disney pass because they were pretty cheap at the time. One parent would round up all the kids in a minivan, drop us all off at the gate of Disneyland because it didn't used to be, parking used to literally be right in front of the gate. So you used to be able to drive right up to the gate, drop your kids off, watch them go in and say, I'll meet you right back here at park closing. We would go play all day. I'm talking about from like ages 9 and up. We would go play all day in the park with like $20 in our pocket. And then our parents would pick us all up at 8 o'clock. And we would stay inside the gate until we could see their car and then run out. Because all the parents knew we were safe inside Disney, so they were just like, whatever. Because we were locked inside the park, you know? So it was a pretty common thing. Yeah, exactly, Liz. I mean, it was a normal thing that we did. That would never happen today. I don't know anyone who would let their kids do that now. But it was fun. We liked it, you know? Michael Eisner was furious. Uh-oh. Throughout the 80s and 90s, Nickelodeon had continued to reign supreme in kids' cable programming. Disney's entire brand was built on family entertainment. This was a space in which his company, theoretically, should be thriving. I don't understand why this Nickelodeon is so popular, the Disney chairman would lament in the mid-90s. In reality, the Disney Channel's programming strategy had been a hodgepodge of chaos since its inception. When James P. Humiro, who had run Disney's non-theatrical media division, first proposed the idea of a Disney cable channel in 1977, he had dreamed of a place where the studio's past theatrical material could air on TV and in turn promote home entertainment consumption. But back then, Disney was more focused on growth of its theme parks. Around that time, 70% of the Walt Disney Company's revenue came from parks, and Epcot was about to open in Florida. Meanwhile, the studio had hit a rough patch in the early years since Walt's death in 1966. Animation was prohibitively slow and expensive. And at the end of the 1970s, home entertainment was just starting to take off with the advent of VHS tapes. But cable television was on the rise, and the medium spread throughout the country in the 1980s. Compartmentalized channels catering to specific audiences proliferated. MTV for music-loving teens, Nickelodeon for kids, A&E for art lovers, financial news for business junkies. When the Disney Channel launched in April 1983, as a premium cable network, it served as something of a G-rated version of HBO. If viewers wanted to add America's Family Network to their cable package, they had to pay an extra monthly subscription fee ranging from $7.95 to $12.95, depending on the year. I'm laughing because that's such a cute amount. I love it. I love the $7 fee. I love it. I know that, like, accounting for inflation, it would probably feel like more back then, but hearing that it costs $7 is cute. Adorable. In its first decade, the Disney Channel became home to programming like Welcome to Pooh Corner and Mousercise, which featured Disney classic characters exercising with kids, variety musical shows like the all-new Mickey Mouse Club and Kids Incorporated, and made-for-TV Disney Channel premiere films like The Parent Trap 2 and 3. Did anyone watch Parent Trap 2 and 3? Because your girl did. I have seen all of them. I don't know if you know this, but one of the twins has triplets. Yeah, that's a real thing. Plus, it included plenty of airtime for the theme park promotions to appease to Disney brass. They lured new subscriber in with Sneak a Peek weekends, which gave regular cable users free access to the channel for a brief window before snatching it away again. But while the network was hitting subscriber targets and attracting critical acclaim, it was clear that Disney didn't really know what to do with the Disney Channel as a brand. By the early 90s, in addition to its Disney character-based programming, the lineup featured a scattered mix of Boyz II Men and Willie Nelson concerts and nature programming. They even annually broadcast the American Teacher Awards in prime time. By the time the all-new Mickey Mouse Club aired its last new episode in 1995, the network had no definitive identity, and few consumers talked excitedly about the channel. Finally, Eisner had had enough. At roughly the same time that the Walt Disney Company snapped up the ABC broadcast network in 1995, Eisner and then Disney president Michael Ovitz began poaching former Nickelodeon executives to join Disney and push the cable group in a competitive new direction. After 10 years as president of Nickelodeon, Geraldine Laybourne left to become president of Disney/ABC Cable Networks, reporting to then TV chairman Bob Iger. Familiar name, I think so. And Laybourne anointed as the new president of the Disney Channel a woman who'd spent more than a decade with her at Nickelodeon, the 38-year-old Anne Sweeney. Hey, Sophie. No worries. We're just getting started. We're in the first chapter. We're a couple pages in, just getting the lay of the land. We're currently in like the mid 90s. We're in like 1995. We haven't even gotten into really the meat of it yet. We're just like laying out the land. Anne Sweeney's parents hadn't allowed her to camp out in front of the living room television when she was growing up in Kingston, New York. When All in the Family premiered in 1971, the Sweeneys, who were both teachers, would put their 3 children to bed and invite the next-door neighbors over to watch the groundbreaking sitcom together. But 13-year-old Anne, the eldest, routinely snuck out of bed to crouch at the top of the stairs and listen, stifling her laughter so as not to blow her cover. I remember my jaw dropping at the way these characters spoke to each other and the things that they were discussing, she said. It was the first moment of clarity for me about what television could be. While getting her master's in education at Harvard, Sweeney set her sights on forging a career that combined both entertainment and education. Soon after graduating in 1980, she fudged her way into an entry-level assisting job in Nickelodeon's then head of acquisitions, Geraldine Laybourne, by claiming that she could type 80 words a minute. That's funny. How many words a minute can you type? Because I can type over 100. In reality, Sweeney said it was more like 8 words a minute. The post was a flop, but Laybourne liked Sweeney's gumption and found another position for her at the channel. Over the next 12 years, Sweeney worked her way up the Nickelodeon ladder to become executive vice president under Laybourne. It was no small feat to have 2 women at the top of a network. Corporate entertainment was, and still is, very much a boys' club. Sweeney had watched Paramount head Sherry Lansing rise from afar in awe ever since she'd read a 1980 profile in the New York Times Magazine, for which Lansing appeared on the cover in a jaunty pantsuit. I read this article about this woman who made movies, and I'll never forget it, said Sweeney. I stopped and I thought, you can do that? Because the thought of it had never crossed my mind. After brokering the international launch of Nickelodeon in the UK, in partnership with Rupert Murdoch's Sky Multichannels, Sweeney was asked by Murdoch to oversee the launch of News Corp's new cable channel FX. She left Nickelodeon in 1993 to help build that interactive network from scratch as chairman and CEO. Remember, this is all pre-Fox News, Sweeney emphasized. I can see why she would want to distance herself from being associated with that. I understand. It was an exciting time of growth and development across the cable industry, but when Sweeney left FX and arrived at her new Disney Channel post in 1996, she found a dismal, uninspired landscape. The legacy staffers on her team had a muted view of their own network's promise, and 6 weeks into Sweeney's presidency, a Disney animation executive was still riding high from the success of The Lion King and his team's place of prominence within the greater Disney Corporation. He came to her at the Burbank office to welcome her to the company. The first thing he said was, "I waste more money in a day than you make in a year," Sweeney recalled. I thought, yeah, okay, I get it. Initial network research showed that when people thought of Disney animated movies, they practically burst with love for the tradition of taking their family to the movie theater to see a new release. When polled about Disney theme parks, there was a similar effusive adoration, even among those who had never been to Anaheim or Orlando. But when asked about the Disney Channel, the answers became stiflingly polite variations of, "Oh, yeah, it's safe, and I don't really worry about my kids watching it." I left that research session saying, "I want to be a park," Sweeney said. "I want to be the one that they talk about. Even if they never watched the Disney Channel, they need to not be able to stop talking about it." To give the Disney Channel relevance in the broader TV landscape and within Disney itself, Sweeney and her team would have to completely throw out the old playbook and rebuild the network from the ground up. And at the time we joined, the Disney Channel was not being strategized, targeted, or produced as a kids channel, said Elio Hensley, who had worked under Sweeney at Nickelodeon and FX and also oversaw marketing and brand strategy at the Disney Channel from 1996 till 2007. Quote, "The philosophy was that it was for the bill payers because it was a paid channel. You target the parents with the kind of programming that they think kids should watch, and they'll feel good about paying that extra monthly charge." Gotta tell you, it's not the way to do it. He's right. That is the old-fashioned way. But that programming wasn't igniting loyalty among young viewers. Oh, shocking. During one focus group session in Chicago, Laybourne and her team asked the children to compare Nickelodeon and the Disney Channel to foods. The Nickelodeon was pizza. The Disney Channel was broccoli. It was decided they needed to scrap all of the existing programming and develop an entirely new strategy, all the way down to the name of the network. After all, there was no such thing as the Nickelodeon. Having the in the Disney Channel placed it alongside stodgy fare like the History Channel and the Travel Channel. So in 1997, they simply became Disney Channel. They also needed to make sure that they had a passionate team in place to ignite their robust changes. 6 months into her role, Sweeney convinced FX programming head Rich Ross to leave and join her in the mammoth task. Rich had all the energy, she said. He understood basic cable, the pace, what you needed to do in the programming, and how to go the distance. This was a new take on what we would look like on air, a reset. Many kids dream of becoming an actor or a singer when they grow up. Rich Ross dreamed of becoming a Hollywood businessman. When his childhood friends had been reading Sports Illustrated, 12-year-old Ross had begged for variety subscriptions. He learned early on that he had no talent for performing, and he didn't attempt any creative roles beyond directing his second-grade class's Thanksgiving play in Westchester County. "I'm woefully inadequate at things that I can be very supportive of in other people," he said. During his time at the University of Pennsylvania and Fordham Law School, Ross spent his summers interning at the glittery William Morris Talent Agency, and when it was time to get a real job, he joined Nickelodeon as a freelance talent coordinator. For anyone who doesn't know, William Morris Talent Agency is like the tippity top of, well, I guess it was. I guess CAA is probably the top now, but it's high up there. It's like a big deal, right? On his first day, he arrived early at the network's New York corporate headquarters to find the floor completely empty. A single light shone down the hallway. There, under its glow, sat a woman eating a very large muffin in a very small office. "I'm Anne," she said between bites. "Do you want to join me for breakfast?" Ross pulled up a chair next to Sweeney and tucked into the mini cereal box that he'd brought from home. A friendship quickly formed, and Sweeney began to bring him in on her projects. Ross's original gig had been to book talent for Nickelodeon's inaugural 1987 awards program, The Big Ballot, which later evolved into the Kids' Choice Awards. That year, he managed to book 35 of the 36 nominees to appear at the taped event, including Michael Jordan and Madonna. Every team, every star agreed, Ross recalled. The only person who wouldn't say yes was Bill Cosby. Beep-a-beep-a-beep. Not a loss, right? I mean, it is what it is. Jello. From there, Ross ran the Nickelodeon talent department and negotiated programming deals and contracts before moving over to FX in Los Angeles alongside Sweeney, and then starting at the not the Disney Channel, just Disney Channel, as Senior Vice President of Programming and Production in 1996. He was just phenomenal at, not a huge loss, facts. He was just phenomenal at spotting talent, Sweeney said. He could see beyond the experience or lack of experience and see what potential was there. Within the Disney Channel corporate echelons, Ross became the golden boy, according to So Weird executive producer and national treasure Henry Winkler. Okay, backing up real quick for 2 seconds. If you haven't read or listened to Henry Winkler's biography or memoir, you absolutely should. I keep suggesting it to people, and everyone I suggest it to is like, but I'm not a Henry Winkler fan. And I'm like, neither was I, but the story is fascinating, and he's a great storyteller. And I listened to his on audiobook, and he's a great reader. This from a very picky person. I've told both Secret Husband and my friend Lori, I was like, you guys should listen to it. And they're like, but we don't like him. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's not about him. And I became a fan by the end of his book because he's so good in it. Like, I highly recommend it. Just saying. Great book. Around the office, Ross often dressed in jeans and loafers, and he carried himself with a dignified presence. At the weekly all-hands meeting each Thursday, he would take center stage in the conference room and go on long-winded soliloquies about the industry and the perceived impact Disney Channel was having. Do I have 2 new memoirs to read now? I think I might. Yeah. I mean, I have to tell you, Henry Winkler's is better than Jessica Simpson's, especially as a listen. He's a way better reader than Jessica Simpson is. No offense. But with the creatives on various shows and movie sets, a different name often took precedence over the years: Gary Marsh. Even though it was a big deal when Rich came to town, nobody ever said to me, oh, Rich wants it to be like this, or, oh, Rich took a look at the casting and we're going to go with this kid. Frequent Disney Channel original movie producer Kevin Lafferty said, it was never that. It was always Gary, Gary, Gary. Marsh was a Los Angeles native who began his career as an assistant to the prolific TV director John Rich. Oh my God, so many people with the same last name. Please, you guys, get a new last name. Marsh also dabbled in political campaigns, including Walter Mondale's failed 1984 presidential bid, and served as the director of movies and miniseries at Columbia Pictures Television before joining the emergent Disney Channel in 1988 as an original programming executive. His previous Disney bosses had been fired in the mid-90s. Had been fired in the mid-90s. Wait, do I not know how to read? What is the matter with my brain cells? His previous Disney bosses had been fired in the mid-90s Sweeney/Ross transition. Wow, why was that so hard? Leaving him as the sole carryover programming head focused on original movie content. I remember Gary coming into my office and he was very clearly nervous, like, oh my God, am I next? Sweeney recalled. I said, tell me what you're working on. And he started to tell me stories about each film, and it occurred to me that I had found my storyteller. There was no doubt in my mind that he needed to stay. But accepting new Disney Channel overlords brought in from outside the Disney family, and that was a tense ask. When Ross initially arrived at his new corner office at Disney Channel's headquarters, he was greeted by an outdated TV encased in wood paneling. Clearly, it had rarely, if ever, been used. But when he walked into Marsh's office, he saw a sparkling new modern set. Nice television, Ross exclaimed. Marsh glanced up from his desk. Order one, he said flatly. Oh boy, Ross thought, maybe this is not going to go so great. But Marsh quickly warmed to the sweeping ideas that Sweeney and Ross were proposing. A month after the TV incident, Marsh knocked on Ross's office door. Hey, I'm not sure how we're going to do it, and I don't know if it's going to work, Ross remembered Marsh saying, but I believe in your passion. As Ross's role expanded to general manager of the network in 1999, the team set about leaning into Marsh's strengths, forming relationships with the creatives, and identifying relatable narratives. It was really the beginning of a storied relationship, Ross said. There was no screaming, there was no drama. Gary had very big energy. Gary had ambition, and Gary had this incredible way of working with writers and directors, which was not my strength. So we divided and conquered. While the network heads at ABC, CBS, or NBC would have little to no direct interaction with the production teams of each show, the network executives at Disney Channel were intimately involved. Marsh, whose role encompassed overseeing all original programming and production by 2001, would often help dictate the set designs, sit in on casting sessions, and offer feedback on story arcs. If it didn't go through Gary, it didn't matter, Lizzie McGuire showrunner Stan Rogo said. Everything went through Gary, and anybody who knew anything realized that if you didn't have Gary on board, you didn't have anybody. Across town, the Nickelodeon offices at MTV Network Santa Monica headquarters featured a whimsical Airstream trailer in the lobby, quirky AeroTurf flooring, and a 100-foot surfboard suspended from the ceiling, and dozens of TV screens playing their channel's hit series. By contrast, the Disney Channel's high-rise home at 38 West Alameda Avenue in Burbank was a bland 21-story tower about a mile from the main Disney Studios lot, which they'd inhabited since 1986. The cookie-cutter cubicle-filled box was outfitted with fluorescent lights and little evidence of the magical brand identity that they were intent on preserving. When I walked in the door and it was all gray and white, I said, "Wait, am I in the wrong building?" Sweeney said. I was expecting like Mickey and Minnie and all this joy. Sweeney attempted to add softening flourishes like hanging kids' artwork in the hallway and standing a 6-foot-tall Mickey plush outside of her office. But that innate office rigidity, many say, was the outward manifestation of a long-held risk-averse tenet of the Disney brand. When you work there, you have to buy into the ethos that is Disney, and it permeates everything in terms of the way that they look at casting, the way that they look at music, the way that they look at pacing and storytelling. Bug Juice creator Douglas Ross, another Ross, said, "I thought, God, they're so old-fashioned and they're even scared of their own shadow." And then there was Standards and Practices team, colloquially known as S&P. Most TV networks have an S&P division, but because of the brand legacy and the young age of Disney Channel's audience, this particular group was notoriously heavy-handed. They touched every single piece of content that aired on Disney Channel, constantly challenging jokes, looking for potential legal issues, questioning imitatable behavior, and pointing out lines and gestures that might be considered offensive in overseas markets. Over the years, S&P would pick apart everything from which brand of designer flip-flops High School Musical star Sharpay could sing about in Fabulous to how much sass Zach could dish out on The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. Phrases like "shut up" and "you suck" were automatic no-goes. Adult characters could not be seen drinking alcohol or even a Shirley Temple mocktail. A line about an actual hairless cat might be interpreted as an innuendo about a beep boop, so that was out. The word war was banned, and even a pillow fight could be deemed as too violent. Sounds like TikTok's S&P. So broad was S&P's purview that at one point we had to put a moratorium on farts, said a former S&P manager at the network. One controversial tidbit that slipped through was naming a Sweet Life antagonist Ilsa Schicklgrugermeyer, an oversight that rankled the European markets for its intentional inclusion of Adolf Hitler's family name Schinkelgruber. "We were just trying to give her a name that sounded villainous," writer Jenny Quinn said. "It didn't get caught until it went overseas." Well, it is a villainous name. They're right about that. It carries a lot of villainous weight. Maybe the most villainous, some have said. The creatives who thrived and had the most longevity at the Disney Channel, both before and after the Sweeney Ross rebrand, tended to be the ones who learned to work within the established system, dutifully incorporating the network's executive exacting input on their desired color of a set rug, or slashing a seemingly harmless joke that S&P deemed problematic. Individuals who balked at the oversight and Disney way had a rocky road. Those who tried to run rogue, Hensley had said, were usually run out of town. Part of the complete 90s reset was an overhaul of how the network reached its viewers in the first place. Growth was essential. Premium cable was expensive and exclusive, Sweeney said, and Disney should never be exclusive. Interesting. The Disney Channel had initiated a transition from premium to basic cable under former network president John Cook, allowing cable providers to choose whether they wanted to offer the network as premium or a basic option in their package. They had a brilliant idea that Disney was in more homes and it would become more valuable than a profitable small pay service, Sweeney said. I thought that it was the most genius thing I had seen in business, so I focused on the accelerating strategy. In 1996, the Disney Channel was in 15 million homes. Under Sweeney, who took over Laybourne's job of overseeing most of the Disney-owned cable channels in addition to her Disney Channel presidency in 1998, under her, they added roughly 1 million homes per month, every month for the next 5 years. We had to quickly matter and figure out the way that cable operators want us badly enough to pay for it, Ross said. In the beginning, it was hand-to-hand combat. The Disney licensing deal, which often lumped Disney Channel into popular packages with ESPN, was among the most expensive for providers. And yet, just 5 years into the regime change, it is incredible, Nikki, Sweeney's team had more than quintupled Disney Channel's circulation to 77 million by 2001. That's insane growth, you guys. That's insane. To go from 15 million to 77 million in a time when the internet was not what it is today is wild town. The last major cable company holdout had been Time Warner. The operator's domain included New York City, not only the single largest market in America, but also home to most of the Nickelodeon executives. Because the Disney Channel didn't run ads, their growth didn't show up in any advertising reports. Exactly why. That's exactly why Disney Plus memberships were cheaper when they first launched. They probably were using this model. This is interesting though, right? I think I remember this time period as a kid when the Disney Channel didn't have ads other than like for whatever show was next, right? And it was a good time. And honestly, it did make it safe. Like you could just leave your kid with it, not worrying about what would pop up. And I understand why ads make sense, but like, it's part of what, like, you guys will notice I don't do ads on my channel. You know what I mean? Because I feel like it does muddy the waters a little bit. You know, it's not that I'm not offered partnerships to do ads. I get emails every single day with people offering things that are like, oh, you can promote XYZ. And I'm like, no, it has to really, really make sense. Yeah, music breaks, that makes sense. I'm totally on board with a music break. Listen, I'm all about a music break. I will perform a music break for you anytime. But it is really interesting that that was their original model because it just feels better. Like in your soul, right? Like it feels cleaner, you know? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's because that's how I was raised. I don't know. Without access to Disney Channel on basic cable in their own homes, the Nickelodeon executives had remained largely unconcerned by Disney Channel's monumental growth until a deal was brokered with Time Warner, who was in the midst of merging with AOL in 2000. If the provider wanted to keep offering ABC, Disney demanded that they would have to include Disney Channel in their basic cable package too. People couldn't believe that we had become what we become because any competitor would have tried to destroy us. But the people who worked in New York for Nickelodeon didn't really see us as competing. You met your husband on AOL? That's adorable, Nikki. Ross said, and then one day we were just the most important thing to kids. In the hierarchy of the Walt Disney Company, cable television had been near the bottom of the ladder when Sweeney and Ross arrived in the mid-90s. quote, "In terms of having an opinion of how to build a business, we were considered to be complete yokels," marketing executive Elo Hensley said. "There was a lot of resistance to the idea that there could be business off of original properties and original characters on the channel. The studios, theme parks, home video, and consumer products all took precedence. And in the beginning, the other division's aspiration for a revamped Disney Channel were that it could become something of a Barker Channel, a network that existed solely for the purpose of advertising and promoting other more lucrative Disney branches. Quote, "I remember getting a call when they were launching one of the first Disney cruise ships. They asked if I could send a crew to film it getting painted in the dock in Italy and make an interstitial about that," Hensley said. And I was like, you honestly think you should make an interstitial about literal paint drying? It was not relevant to whether a kid would find that it wasn't relevant to them whether a kid would find that interesting in any way. Every Disney Channel, every division had an opinion of what the Disney Channel should be that would make it the most valuable to them. To appease the studio and home video divisions, they developed movie surfers. Oh, I remember that. Do you guys remember movie surfers? I 100% remember it. An informative series hosted by photogenic teens, including a young Tina Milian, who would discuss the latest Disney theatrical and DVD releases, giving a behind-the-scenes look at the making of the movies. The surfers would include Mighty Joe Young actors, a hangout with the Shaggy Dog from The Shaggy Dog, or learn how A Bug's Life made its computer animated bloopers. It was good stuff, you guys. It was good stuff. Quote, "The big company started to see that our instincts were not to be The big company started to see that our instincts were not to be anti-Disney," Hensley said. "We said, let us try to figure out the best way that will work for this audience, and it will be a win for all of us." Even after the move from premium to basic cable, Disney Channel steered clear of paid advertising. Instead of the commercials for Nerf guns and Barbies that populated ad breaks on other kid channels, Disney filled the gaps with their own house-made short-form content, i.e. interstitials, like movie surfers. Honestly, it was smart. It keeps it all in the family. The lack of in-your-face commercials gave parents the peace of mind that their kids weren't being bombarded with ads pushing the latest hair bedazzler or Hot Wheels, but mainly it was more valuable for the interstitial breaks to serve as a billboard for the greater Disney Corporation than to pocket revenue from outside advertisers. "We were able to calculate the impact that running those Disney spots on the Disney Channel had on the rest of the company," Sweeney said. "Advertising would have diminished the amount of time the company had to talk about itself and promote its visions." It is smart. You're right. I agree. So you guys know I always like to point out what's been highlighted by other people. This next section has been highlighted, which always means that it must be something interesting. You know what I mean? That being said, I read a couple books recently where some things were highlighted and I was like, what are you people doing? But let's see what this is. The Children's Television Act of 1990 had mandated that children's programming contain no more than 12 minutes of commercials per hour on weekdays and 10.5 minutes on weekends. Interesting. And the FCC dictated that advertising for children's products associated with the program was also prohibited. For Disney Channel, that extended to any hint of broader Disney propaganda, including referencing its theme parks, cruise lines, or animated films in its series and movies. Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, if you're watching the Disney Channel, seeing an ad for The Lion King seems kind of like, whatever, you're already here, right? I don't know. That seems kind of silly. While ABC was able to get away with Boy Meets World characters visiting Disney World in an episode, the fictional families on Disney Channel could never even mention the parks. Interesting. But the rule didn't extend to interstitial breaks. Oh, interesting. There, Disney Channel could hawk Disney's various assets with abandon as long as they didn't exceed the time restrictions. On the programming side, Rich Ross had been given 6 weeks from his initial 1996 start date to come up with the new content strategy. From the 21st floor of the West Alameda building, the team mapped out a plan that set about breaking up the network's schedule into audience-specific programming blocks, similar to their strategy at Nickelodeon. There was what became Playhouse Disney for toddlers and preschoolers in the morning and early afternoons, original movies and series for the older kids in the late afternoons, and Primetime and Disney Vault, a space for classic Disney content tucked deeper into the night. It's fascinating. I completely agree, Claire. This is all very interesting, and like being a grown-up, looking back at it now, I see it all, but like at the time, it just, flies right over your head when you're a kid. The Primetime block was aimed at the underserved market of kids 9 to 14 and their families. This was the most crucial. While Nickelodeon dominated the kids' animation with series like Rugrats and Hey Arnold, true, we were all obsessed with those, and had started venturing into live action sketch shows with All That and The Amanda Show, also true, there was a distinct gap in Primetime scripted programming for those who had aged out of Nick but were still too young, or at least whose parents felt like they were too young for MTV. These were the tweens. J.R.R. Tolkien had used the term tweens to describe the years that reckless hobbits spent caught between teendom and adulthood in his 1954 novel The Fellowship of the Ring. But starting in the late 1980s, tween began to be used in marketing circles to refer to the precarious time between childhood and adolescence, encompassing a pliable range of years going as low as the age of 8 and up to the age of 15. Right, Claire? Yeah, the Nick to MTV pipeline was real. I think it's because of all that. As someone who had a long Disney life, yes, agreed. I was the insomnia night kid watching all of those shows. That's why I know all the old stuff. I think a lot of us who know all the really old shows and things, it's because they were on Nick at Night, right? And well, not only Nick at Night, but Disney Channel's late night, but also Nick at Night did it too. Both of them. I watched both of them recklessly. New nerd fact. Yeah, I didn't know this whole thing about the Fellowship of the Ring, so I did not know that J.R.R. Tolkien coined the term tweens and that it was a completely different meaning. So that is a new nerd fact. You're absolutely right. Did anyone know that? Because I did not know that at all. This is brand new information to me. It's a time when youth faces a host of unique physical and emotional challenges and also began to wield increased buying power in their homes. Tweens were a natural fit for Disney Channel. In the 90s, Disney brand name implied babyish fare. Disney's calling card were kids, animated movies, and theme parks. The phrase Disney adults did not yet exist. Mickey Mouse was decidedly uncool. The new guard needed tweens to see Disney Channel as fresh and trendy while dealing with the same preconceived notions that came with the name. People, this is a quote, people for the most part were like, this is not going to work, Ross said, and understood the power of kids. Bob Iger understood the power of television, and they were both very supportive. But a lot of people just didn't believe in us. You did know, Gigi? I did not know. I was not in the know, but now we all are. As a part of the revamp, Sweeney and Ross began using the Disney Channel money that had previously been spent on content acquisitions to make their own original content instead. The network's main priorities would be split across two divisions, the original series and original movies. Quote, "We had limited dollars to tell a multitude of stories," Ross said. We needed both to work and we needed both to be funded. Key to the early series programming direction was Lee Gaither. Unlike the majority of the other executives who were white and had migrated to California from the Northeast with degrees from elite private universities like Harvard, Vassar, Penn, and NYU, Gaither was a black man from Mobile, Alabama, who had graduated from Auburn, a public university where football is king. He was a veteran of kids programming at ABC and the USA Network, and he was eager to make his mark on the revamped Disney Channel. Quote, "No one in programming room, no one in the networks at the senior level ever had looked like me," Gaither said. I always felt like an alien, but Jerry Laybourne embraced that part of me in a huge way and forced me to really speak up early on in my tenure at Disney in terms of what was missing in the marketplace. That's because us 90s Disney Channel kids are the Disney. That's exactly right. I was literally thinking that when I read that. The reason that the term Disney adult didn't exist yet is because this turned us into those, right? I mean, kind of. Although I will say, I do have to say, people like my mother were Disney adults. Like, she really was. My mom was like an OG Disney adult for sure. There just wasn't a term for it yet. But my mom, who went to Disney for the first time on her 8th birthday in literally like 1950, like 1954, 56. It must have been a year after it opened or whatever. She got to go for her 8th birthday, became a Disney adult, which is how we all became Disney kids, because she started just like using Disneyland as our local park when we were children because she loved watching the shows and just walking around and looking at stuff. Yeah, same. Yeah, Disney Channel didn't stop being a thing because High School Musical worked even if you were in college. Even college musical theater kids loved High School Musical. It wasn't just for tweens anymore. It was very interesting. It's a whole, that's why I was really interested in reading this book, because it's a very serious shift change, right? I think we all feel that way in here, or a lot of us anyway. Okay, where was I? Sorry. What was missing, they concluded, was family viewing experiences. And this is highlighted here. Disney Channel's research showed that 90s millennial kids wanted to be more connected to their parents. It was a notion previously rejected by MTV and Nickelodeon. While Nick shows screamed for kids only with gross out humor, clueless parents, and copious amounts of slime. Hey, we use slime to bring ourselves together with our kids. How dare you? Disney Channel now hoped to bring entire families to the couch for co-viewing shows that bridged the generational divide. One early Disney Channel viewer survey asked kids who their heroes were. The executive expected the answers to range from superheroes to historical figures. Instead, the most universal answer came back: Mom, Dad, my brother, my sister. That was a moment when the light bulb went off and said, oh, we're not paying attention to what makes Disney Disney. Sweeney said, we need to recalibrate. After a few false starts with original game shows like Mad Libs and Off the Wall, and easy to produce nature series like Omba Mokomba and Going Wild with Jeff Corwin, I actually remember that one, they shifted their focus to dramas, both in movie and series form, because that was what felt most true to the Disney brand. If Nickelodeon was all burps and pratfalls, Disney Channel was going to be emotion and heart. At Nickelodeon, the audience inherently skewed towards boys. They had to work to bring the girls in with programming like Clarissa Explained It All and The Secret World of Alex Mack, both of which were phenomenal, by the by. Love them both. Disney was the opposite. The brand's princess legacy meant that girls often felt more welcomed, and they now needed to work boys into the mix. Princesses, this is a quote, princesses are one of the biggest franchises for the company, but we were very, very steadfast about not developing any more princess programming, Hensley said. At that time, a princess program was going to send 50% of your audience out of the room. Many of their early Disney Channel movies and series were thus action-packed and male-centric, like Brick, Johnny Tsunami, and the famous Jet Jackson. Honestly, it worked because us girls watched Brick and Johnny Tsunami too, right? I totally did. Other parameters included Disney Channel's much-discussed 65-episode rule. I don't know this one. A policy in which they would cancel most original series once they hit the 65-episode mark. The benchmark was a holdover from classic programming idea that you needed 65 episodes to have enough content to repeat 5 days a week for 13 weeks, which could then be repeated quarterly to provide a full slate of content year-round. Okay, fair enough. With 65 episodes in the bank, Disney Channel would be able to air consecutive reruns on the same time slot every weekday, i.e. The Famous Jet Jackson at 4 p.m., In a Heartbeat at 4:30, and So Weird at 5 p.m. After they reached that threshold, the cost to the network continuing to make new episodes of the same show was greater than if they ended the series and started with a fresh new show to add to the mix. This must be why we have things like The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody and then The Sweet Life on Deck, because it's technically a new show, so they can run both, and that must be, I don't know for sure. I also loved So Weird. But I'm guessing that's how those things came about, was because of this thing. I'm assuming, I don't know, but I'm guessing we'll find out later. Plus, as the young casts got older, the storylines had to remain rooted in the material that was appropriate for younger audiences. Unlike Grease, where 30-year-old actors tried to pass as high schoolers, or Beverly Hills 90210, where the cast was mostly in their 20s during filming, Disney Channel followed Nickelodeon's model, casting actual tweens and teens to play their on-stage counterparts. On-screen counterparts. Hey Renee, how are you feeling? Are you better? Quote, "To me, the most relatable thing was casting someone who was around 13 to play 13, Ross said. They were all young, and there's a sensitivity to that. They were all very cognizant of it, but we were also interested in the audience looking at them and saying, they look like somebody I go to school with. Most of the young actors also wanted to evolve and grow, and ending at a 65 episode mark just seemed like the right timeline to allow that to happen for them. Quote, "It was healthy for everybody that they grow up," Ross said. "It was better for us to meet new tweens and teens than to have 25-year-olds playing 18-year-olds in stories that they would never be involved in. It wasn't that the kids had to stay young, it was that the stories needed to stay young." Honestly, I agree with this model. I would rather have a new story than see a 25-year-old playing a 13-year-old. I agree, to be honest. Yeah. Wow. That was a wild first chapter, you guys. We learned a lot. New info abounds. I like that model too. I think it's good for everyone. It's definitely a model that exists in theater. Hey Brittany, I don't know if you guys know this, but it's definitely a big thing in theater, probably because theater is so in your face that they can't hide ages the same way, but you get aged out of shows. Agreed. Yes, I agree, Liz. You get aged out of shows in theater really fast. For example, I always use this as the example. I went to the opening night of The Little Mermaid on Broadway, and the young boy who had been playing Flounder in previews was sitting right in front of me rather than on stage, because his voice changed right before opening, and it's in the contract that they can't keep going if they're, you know what I mean, because Flounder's supposed to be little, and he just went through a growth spurt, got taller than Ariel, and his voice changed. And so of course he was invited to still be a part of everything, but he couldn't perform on opening night because he was taller than Ariel all of a sudden. You know? He started playing the role in previews when he was like, or in workshops when he was like 9 years old, but by the time you hit 13, you could be taller than the girl who's the lead. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, it was sad for him. He was sad, but this is something I actually put this on parents to discuss with their kids when they sign a contract, because it's very clear in those contracts what the rules are. So if you're gonna have a kid that is a performer, you need to sit them down and say, hey, just so you know, these are things that are possible, and it's not what I think one of the greatest disservices that stage parents and screen parents do to their kids is not explaining to them the difference between something that is personal and something that is production, right? So like, they're not taking you out of the show because they don't like you. They're taking you out of the show because you grew up. You're not Peter Pan. You don't get to stay a boy forever. You know what I mean? And you can go on to do other things, and they usually do, and that's great. So anyway, I think this chapter was great. I think this book is fascinating. I'm fascinated with the inner works of these things. I'm so glad that you all wanted to read it with me. This is great. If anyone did not see, Naisa posted a link in our book club chat this morning because today is one of those stuff your Kindle days. I only downloaded one book of it because today is a fantasy day and I'm not a huge fantasy reader. I am when it's stuff like Land of Stories, Hunger Games, stuff like that, but I'm not like a traditional fantasy reader so much. But if you are, today is a Stuff Your Kindle day for fantasy stuff, and Naisa did post that link in our chat. Man, work people keep asking me questions. That's the rudest thing they could do to you on a Friday. So anyway, check that out if you're interested in those things. You're very welcome, Renee. Happy to be the reminder for that stuff. I will upload this later for anyone who missed part of it. Yeah, definitely. Some of the spicy fantasy is April. Yeah, I don't mind. Like, I just can't get into fantasy these days. I don't know what is wrong with me. I used to. Don't forget to order the coffee. Thank you, Amanda. I'll do that right now as soon as we get off. But it's good for those who it's good for. And I will see you all later. Oh no, the one you mentioned isn't there, Roxy. I looked through it. I might not be here tomorrow, going to Fresno for a few. Ooh, I'm sorry. That's a terrible reason to have to miss. But yeah, Roxy, it's not on there. I looked through the whole thing today. You also texted me about ordering coffee. Oh, thank you, Liz. I appreciate that. My fantasy needs to meet very specific criteria. I agree. Secret Husband stole your imagination. No, he's got a great imagination, actually. And I have to tell you, Secret Husband is great for bouncing ideas off of when writing stories. So he's not a drain on that. I'm going out of town for the weekend, so probably missing tomorrow. No worries, no worries. I'll upload it for everybody. But I will see you all later. Lots of orders went out yesterday. The rest should go out today, I hope. But I'll let you all know. See you later, friends. This month's great timing. Can't afford Kindle. Yeah, it's perfect timing. Yeah, literally. It's good timing for everyone.